Tonight, Chile has called off two international summits in a new setback for the embattled President Sebastián Piñera. He says he needs to focus now on restoring calm to the country, which has seen days of deadly protests. At least 18 people have died in the unrest. New venues now have to be found for the COP25 Climate Summit and for the APEC Trade Summit, which was scheduled to bring together world leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump and China's President Xi Jinping.
For days, Chile's capital, Santiago, has resembled a war zone. Protesters throwing rocks and stones at police. They responding in kind with water cannon, tear gas and more. It's against this backdrop that Chile's embattled president has taken a decision he must regret: to cancel hosting not one but two upcoming international summits.
We deeply lament the problems and the inconvenience that this decision will have on APEC as well as for the COP25 summit. As president of all Chileans, I have to always put the problems and interests of the Chileans, their necessities and their hopes first.
President Piñera has already replaced a third of his cabinet in his latest attempt to quell the unrest. But Chileans continue to take to the streets. Up to 1 million marching against inequality, poor public services and a struggling economy. Few are bothered by the decision not to host either the APEC summit in November or the UN climate meeting a month later.
It's true these kinds of summits bring some benefits. But as long as there are no laws or a new constitution to distribute those benefits, it's fine to cancel them.
And so the mass protests go on as Chileans demand what they see as a brighter and fairer future.
All right, for more now, let's go to Santiago, where correspondent John Bartlett is standing by. Good evening to you, John. I mean, this is quite a climb down for the Chilean government. Just a few days ago, the president was insisting that these two high-profile events, that they had to take place. And then, of course, this U-turn.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's the more you kind of let it percolate and you sort of think about what this decision means, the more it makes sense. It seems like the only real course of action. I think that if you look from a security point of view, it's not safe at the moment, and I think it's probably the last place you want to be sending a load of world leaders and their entourages. I think that from that point of view, certainly it makes sense. You're right, though, it's a huge climb down. I think the other way of looking at it is the kind of public relations side of things. Were a journalist to ask questions of a world leader who had come to either the APEC or the COP25 summit, what they thought of the situation now that they're on the ground, I think that it would be unlikely to get a favourable answer from the Chilean government's point of view. So I think this was something that had been coming, but it does still seem pretty dramatic looking at the number of people that have spent a year of their lives kind of putting the preparations in place and the number of volunteers and things that they've already had ready there to hold out the event.
But it's also quite dramatic to be able to say that it's simply not safe to have people from around the world coming to Chile. I mean, what is driving these protests and the violence, that seemingly do not want to stop?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any doubt that the Chilean government would have been able to hold the event. I don't know if it's too dangerous really to do that overall, but it certainly seems at the moment the situation on the streets is pretty desperate, and it isn't going away. You're right. I was out last night and the demands are still the same. There was a big protest and people are basically looking at these kind of entrenched socioeconomic inequalities and really wanting a kind of systemic change and a real change in the model, which is something that's very hard to come by. Those demands have now coalesced into a call for a new constitution. So there's a movement from the opposition to have a plebiscite on a constitutional assembly or some kind of constitutional process, because there are actually two ways of doing it here in Chile. That's very difficult to comment on at the moment, whether that comes to anything and whether a new constitution is indeed viable anyway, I think are two different things. So I think those are the main concerns, and I think that most of them can be kind of rooted in the constitution to some extent.
All right, correspondent John Bartlett joining us tonight from Santiago. John, thank you.